Today, we are digging into a business classic that honestly feels more relevant now than ever. It's called Execution, the Discipline of Getting Things Done, and it was written to tackle one single, incredibly frustrating question that, well, it haunts pretty much every company out there. So what's that big question? It's this. Why do these brilliant strategies, the ones crafted by the smartest people in the room, so often just completely fall apart the second they hit the real world? To really get a feel for how high the stakes are, the book introduces us to this sort of archetype. We'll call him Joe the CEO. He's smart, he's got a great plan, and he got fired. His last words to his advisors are just chilling. They let me down, they didn't deliver, I've probably lost my credibility with the board. His story isn't some rare exception. It's a symptom of a much bigger problem, and it's the mystery we're going to solve. And look, this is not an isolated incident. This gap, the one between what a leader promises and what the company actually delivers, it's like a corporate epidemic. We have seen absolute titans of industry. We're talking Xerox, Kodak, AT&T, Compaq. All of them have wrestled with this exact same problem right out in the open. So what gives? What is the missing piece of the puzzle here? Well, that brings us right to our first big idea. We need to understand what the book calls the Great Execution Gap. That missing link, it has a name, execution. But hold on, we have to be super clear about what that really means. It is not just doing stuff. Look at this definition here. It's a systematic process. It's all about rigorous, tough discussions, constant questioning, and just relentless follow-through. It is the discipline of forcing your big, beautiful strategy to actually confront reality. And, this gets right to the heart of the problem. Most leaders, they see execution as, well, just tactics. It's the detail work, right? The stuff they can delegate while they go off and focus on the big picture. But the book argues the absolute opposite. Execution is a discipline. It's a system. And most importantly, it is the central job of any leader. Period. This whole new way of thinking is really built on three truths that just flow, one right into the next. First, you have to see that execution is a discipline, and it's totally integral to strategy. Okay, so because it's a discipline, that makes it the leader's main job. And then when the leader makes it their job, it can't help but become a core part of the entire company's culture. See how they connect? So if execution is this whole system, this big discipline, what does that actually look like day to day? Well, that's what we're jumping into now. What execution really is. Execution isn't some fuzzy, abstract concept. Nope. It's actually built on three very solid, tangible pillars: the leader's own personal behaviors, the company's framework for culture, and this one's maybe the most critical of all, having the right people in the right roles. It really does all start with the leader's behavior. The book lays out 7 essential ones, and they aren't about these grand visionary speeches. They're about real, tangible actions. First, it's about being grounded. You've got to know your people and your business, and you have to insist on realism. No sugarcoating. From there, it's all about focus, setting clear goals, following through like a bulldog, and rewarding the people who actually get things done. And finally, it's about growth. You're constantly expanding your team's skills, and you have the self-awareness to know yourself, warts and all. Man, this quote from the former CEO of EDS, Dick Brown, just nails it. The culture of a company is the behavior of its leaders. Leaders get the behavior they exhibit and tolerate. In other words, you can forget all those inspirational posters on the wall. Your culture is what you, as a leader, personally do, and what you let other people get away with. It's that simple. So if a leader has to be that involved, what's the one job, the single most important process that they can never, ever, ever delegate? It's the people process. And on this point, the book is just crystal clear. The single biggest point of failure in business, the most common reason for failure, is a leader who is not personally and deeply committed to putting the right people in the right jobs. Everything else, literally everything, flows from that. Okay, so let's see how these building blocks, the leader's behavior, the culture, the people, how they actually play out when the rubber meets the road. If you want proof, look no further than the classic, legendary showdown between Compaq and Dell. Compaq had this big, bold strategy: buy up other companies, become a one-stop shop. The problem? They completely failed to execute the integration. Meanwhile, Michael Dell, he made execution itself his strategy, focusing relentlessly, obsessively on a build-to-order system. So what was the real-world result of Dell's insane focus? This number right here, 80. What is that? That's how many times a year Dell turned over its entire inventory. Its competitors, like Compaq, they were doing it maybe 10, 12 times. This wasn't some boring accounting detail. This was a competitive weapon. It generated massive, massive amounts of cash that let Dell just crush the competition on price and speed. And this pattern, it just repeats itself over and over. When Lucent Technologies was completely faltering, what was the diagnosis from their new CEO, Henry Schacht? Our issues are ones of execution and focus. It's the same problem, just in a different boardroom. These examples, they paint a very, very clear picture, don't they? They create this really stark contrast between what execution failure looks like versus what success looks like. Ultimately, if there's one single thing to take away from all this, it's this. Execution is the bridge. It's the missing link between your aspirations and your results. It isn't just part of a leader's job. As the authors put it, it is the major, indeed the major job of a business leader. Which brings us to our final and most powerful idea, the leader's most important job. So this whole explainer, it leaves every single one of us with a fundamental and kind of tough question to ask about our own teams and our own companies. So be honest with yourself. Is your organization truly built to win? Or is it just built to plan?